control all of the public comment and so forth, but we are happy to have you here and welcome you to our committee, and please begin.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. And, maybe it's somewhat symbolism. You're right, it is a late hour. Maybe it's just simply a late hour in America for us to really take a look at the fundamental need for education reform. So I always appreciate the symbolism. But I want to thank you. I want to thank the committee members. I know it's been a long day for many of you. And even more so, it's been a long road in getting here today. But I am very proud to be here at this moment to present Senate Bill 1. This is a bold measure which answers the call of President Obama, of Secretary Duncan, who issued a challenge to every state in the nation to race to the top. On August 20th, the governor called an extraordinary session for us to answer this call. And a week later, of course, we did introduce Senate Bill 1. This bill has moved out of the Senate on a bipartisan basis, and I look forward to this bill being heard, debated, discussed, and moved forward as well out of this committee and on to the next chapter. This bill will ensure that California is not only eligible, that's not enough to be eligible. We are wanting to be competitive in this race to the top. The top matters, and the race takes the next chapter here in this committee room today. I believe that today is the day we can stand and deliver for California's students and their parents. And we do this by real change, by being bold, by taking on and answering the call that President Obama has issued to every state in the nation. We do this in Senate Bill 1. By looking at real change in public education with reforms that are related to a number of issues, to standards and assessments, to the use of data to improve teaching and learning, to lifting the caps on charter schools in California, to ensuring that every child in our school has access to an effective teacher and an effective school leader. We also renew our focus on math and science to ensure that our kids are ready for the global economy. And of course, we know that in this bill as well that we will not move to the top if we fail the toughest assignment of all, and that is turning around the chronically lowest performing schools in California. Many have said race to the top, it's a one-time thing. It's all about the money, and it's not that much. Make no doubt about it. Race to the top is not just about the money. This is about a vision statement. This is about setting forth a template for how we envision the possibilities for public education. And so when we take a look at this, I would argue we need that money, but it is not just about the money. And even still, we know that the final rules that we'll be setting forth as we go forward will bring in what has been put forth in these guidelines and regs that have been set forth as we speak. So let me talk a little bit about Senate Bill 1 and the overarching platform from which we proceed. We believe that Race to the Top, it's about equality, it's about opportunity, it's about ensuring that every child from all backgrounds, affluent and high poverty, in every neighborhood has access to a quality education. I look at it and I believe this is a civil rights issue. You know, it's interesting. I was looking at the time frame, and Race to the Top application is due on January 19th. Remember the date, January 19th. That is actually the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King, and it will be just one day after the nation in California. We're going to be on holiday that day. We are going to go home. Maybe we'll ride in a parade. We will say we have a dream. The next day, the application is due. So I am asking us to do the right thing today. If we're going to honor the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King, then let's make sure that we do so in a way that puts our children first. We know that education is what makes us equal. It's what gets us to that mountaintop. And so I'm going to look forward to celebrating in January. And really, I think the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King will not just be an act of symbolism. We will have something to deliver for the kids and the parents of California. I walk around with this scroll. I think probably some of you have seen me with it, and it looks like a diploma. And one day, it will be a diploma. I believe in symbolism. But actually, sadly, this is not a diploma today. It's actually a list from the California Department of Education. On this list, the names of 571 schools in the Golden State. Maybe you might take a look at it. I know one of my former schools is on this list. And this school is a list that shows the number of schools, 571, schools that have failed to meet their academic targets, not for 1 year, not 2 years, not 3 years, not 4 years, not 5 years, not 6 years, for at least 7 years in a row. Some of them, 10 years, an entire decade. We're going to talk about math and numbers. At least 7 years. And if you take a look at that list, 7 years, that's almost 2 cohorts, an entire generation of kids in a high school. 7 years and counting. Talk about a 7-year itch. If we do a breakdown by ethnicity of this list of students that are enrolled in the persistently lowest performing schools in California, make no doubt about it, it is a civil rights issue because 86% of the kids on this list are either African American or Latino. 86%. And we're going to be celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King's birthday once again. Literally, millions and millions of California children have been left behind over the last 2 and 3 decades. And from the standpoint of public finances, the cost of persistent failure, it's not just about what we spend on schools, but it's also what we spend on welfare, on jails, on building prisons, on victimization. We all know that the California Dropout Research Project, they recently reported that each cohort of California dropouts, it costs the state of California $46 billion over their lifetime. That's a cost. That's a cost. And we know that California children and their families are suffering. We cannot wait. We should not wait. We must not wait for another decade to come before we finally have the courage and the conviction to truly turn these schools around. I think the beauty and the boldness of SB1 is really its simplicity. It basically says that change is no longer voluntary. It's mandatory. It's about time. Let's just do it. I want to thank the committee for the analysis of Senate Bill 1. I did read it when I received it yesterday. I did notice that there's not one recommended amendment to the bill, so that could mean a number of things. Maybe you say, let's go ahead and move it out as is. I do, though, and I want to offer some specific language to address some of the concerns, and we'll ask the sergeants to pass this out, to move it out either here in this committee or to wait to take a look at it in appropriations. But it deals with technical questions, some of them that are raised in the analysis. I do want to acknowledge that I saw the very long list of concerns. Some of these, I believe, we can resolve. Absolutely. With further discussion, we talk about moving bills along, a work in progress, and I look forward to continuing to have that dialogue and debate. I do think, however, that on that list of concerns, there are many items that, quite frankly, I don't believe we should put into statute, that do not belong in the bill. Some of those concerns in the analysis are already addressed in current law. Some of the concerns are addressed by the state's Race to the Top application and the MOUs themselves that will be signed by the participating LEAs. And so we don't need to put them into a bill. I want to remind us that we are not writing the application in the bill. Senate Bill 1, or for that matter, AB 8, that's not the application. In a sense, it's sort of the trigger that enables us to be eligible and competitive. So there are some of the concerns that we believe are best left to the application and the MOU itself. And I'd like to indicate that as soon as I open on this bill, I want to turn, of course, to our Education Undersecretary, Kathy Gaither, who will address many of those specifics in terms of what's in current law, what might be in the application, what we might just fundamentally disagree on as well. But I do want to, in the time that I have, is to address at least a few of these issues, some specific points. And we can walk through the policy issues. There's a lot there. It merits additional conversation as we move forward. But I think, to me, the real heart and soul of Senate Bill 1 is the focus on what Secretary Duncan has said, the toughest assignment. The one that we walk away from, the one that we look away from. And that deals with this list right here that I have been walking with since August when the special session was called. Secretary Duncan calls the turnarounds the toughest assignment because it's so easy to pass the buck. But he also said that we can no longer turn the cheek any longer on the turnaround schools. If we are going to be internationally competitive, we cannot leave hundreds of thousands and millions of California students over the years in the basically the hole of failing schools. And I don't think I need to remind you that California leads the nation today. Unfortunately, we lead the nation in dropouts. We have an opportunity to turn that around. Senate Bill 1 boldly establishes a plan for turning around the bottom 5% of California's chronically lowest achieving schools. Some of these include charter schools. They're on the list as well. The bill requires the State Board of Education and the Superintendent of Public Instruction to jointly identify the lowest achieving, the lowest performing 5% of the persistently lowest performing schools in California, and to make them subject to one of the 4 turnaround strategies chosen at the local level with public input. We know already that the state right now, under federal law, has actions that we can deal with these failing schools. But let's be honest. We know that Sacramento, quite frankly, too often has taken the path of least resistance. Let's put that out on the table. Sacramento too often has taken the path of least resistance when it comes to restructuring and turning around our failing schools. For about 90% of schools subject to action under NCLB, California typically chooses the other option. I mean, 90%. Let's be honest. That option, it's a loophole. It allows us to check the box and said, we tried something, and then to turn around and find year after year after year after year for at least 7 years and as long as 10, we come back really realizing that Sacramento has failed to act. We tinker, we talk. We are calling in Senate Bill 1 not to date and not to say, because all we do is wait. And so we are urging us to take action today. We know that oftentimes, if you look at this list, oftentimes we think we're paying homage to our civil rights leaders. We name schools after them. We've got King schools and Chavez schools and Rosa Parks schools. It's not to name a school after a civil rights leader. It's to do the right thing. And that's what we're asking us to do today. So this bill says it's not about rearranging the chairs. It's not about tinkering. It is about, yes, wading into the controversy, because unless we're willing to be bold and to take on the controversy firsthand, we will come back in the next legislative session and come back with an even longer list of schools on this list. We have an opportunity today. Let me just focus on a couple of points of controversy in this bill. The first one, of course, is open enrollment. Open enrollment. Senate Bill 1 authorizes open enrollment for students who have been stuck in schools that have been identified as persistently low-performing, failing schools. Remember that scroll that I showed you? Simply, this controversial portion, open enrollment, says parents have a choice. Parents have a choice in public education to fight for their kids. Let me ask you, if you're a parent and you had a child in a school that had been on the list for at least 7 years, do you think you'd be on the front line saying, I'm going to fight for my kid? I'll tell you, my mother had a 6th grade education, but she was smart enough to know that education is what would make her daughter equal. We have zip code education in California today. Depending on geography, it's destiny. You live in this neighborhood, high poverty, high crime, schools that don't perform, there's no way out. We believe in public education. We're going to fight for public education. It's what makes us equal. Open enrollment simply says parents, the moms of California, just like my mother with a 6th grade education, had the smarts to know she was going to fight to make sure her daughter and all of her children would be educated. What's the controversy over open enrollment? If we actually take a look at it, we did it with community colleges 2 decades ago. And today, we can enroll in any community college of our choice. I believe in choice. I believe in a public option in public education. That's the controversy over open enrollment. But I believe as a parent, if we expect responsibility from parents, then let's give them the rights and let's not be afraid. That segues into the second controversial issue in this bill, the parent trigger. Okay, that's the second one. What does that mean? Essentially, it just says we empower parents to do the right thing for their kid. It basically allows parents to petition their government, to sign a petition, to engage in the most democratic, with a small d, the most democratic act, to sign a petition, to petition their school leaders to say, we want this school to turn around and to meet the needs of our children. We don't want to be on this list for another 7 years. That's the parent trigger. I believe in power to the people. I believe in giving parents power. I believe that parents who understand that education is what makes our kids equal will do the right thing. And it doesn't guarantee that the schools turn around. You know what the parent trigger does? It just gives them a chance. It gives the parents a chance to organize, to petition their government, to sign their John Hancock to a piece of paper, to say, my child needs a quality education. And as a mom, I'm going to stand up for my kid. I don't understand the controversy. I don't understand the fear. I do understand the need. And I'd like to acknowledge that when I was on the plane this morning, I ran into a number of moms on the plane flying up here, and I think you're going to see some of them testifying today. And I'd just like to stop and thank them. You're going to hear from the Vice President of the LA School Board, Yoli Flores. I'm so proud that she's here today. She's going to tell you that when she ran a resolution in LA Unified District, the largest district in California, a school choice resolution in public education that gave parent rights, there were some 2,000 parents on the streets of downtown LA rallying in support of her bill. You know, we often hear parents don't care. Parents do care. Moms in California care. And all this parent trigger says is, you know what? We hear you, we respect you, because make no doubt about it, we are not going to build any schools in California. It's the parents who pay the bills. It's the parents who pay the bills to keep the lights on in the schools. All the parent trigger says is let's respect our parents and give them a chance to petition their government. I don't understand the controversy. So I'm going to close there. I know there's many issues for dialogue, debate, discussion. I'm going to tell you I'm very proud to be here today. And I look forward to a strong dialogue. We can do this together. This is not a thing about pitting houses against each other. There is room for all of us. All boats can rise together as we race to the top together. But we are not going to get to the top if this list continues. We are not going to get to the top if we lock out and are afraid of our parents and their rights to march on us if need be. So I'm going to, at this moment, then turn to the Undersecretary. She will walk through the technical parts about it, but I'm going to say we can talk about all the technicalese. Quite simply, this is a very simple bill. It simply says status quo is unacceptable. This is not about even reform or tinkering. This is about transforming public education so that every child in California will have the chance that this kid who came from the other side of the tracks with the mother with the 6th grade education had to stand before you today and say, I have not forgotten where I've come from. And there are too many kids on this list, just like me, with their moms, who are asking us, don't forget them either. So